Today we're talking to somebody who might actually support the local music scene more than most bands. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl, and I essentially travel mainly around the Midwest, but I have been out to the East Coast and, going down further. I make bracelets, these bead bracelets.
Very nice.
For every show that I go to, and I hand them out to people, sometimes at random. As I've been doing it more and more, I get people that actually look for me at the shows that I'm at. And they'll try and find me, which kind of got me to give myself the nickname, your favorite redheaded Waldo, because I was literally, people were finding me in a crowd and it was like, there's Waldo. So I started dressing as Waldo at some of the festivals that I go to and things like that, just to kind of go along with it. But essentially, it just started as me. Well, okay, my mom died in September of 2022, and that was a moment that absolutely changed my life. And from there, I kind of got into a you only live once type of lifestyle. And I became a yes girl. I would say yes to anything. Like, let's do this. Let's go experience life. And it led me to start going to a lot of multi-day festivals and a lot more concerts. I've always loved live music ever since I was a little kid. My dad was in a CCR, an Eagles cover band, when I was growing up. So I grew up with live music and like bar music. And so I've always loved it. But once my mom died, I really started to throw myself into it. And after my mom died, it led to a divorce. I'd been married for 20 years and it didn't work out after that. And so I came up with this idea. I had all of these extra concert tickets that were supposed to be for my ex-husband, but I just had them extra. So I went into a group for one of the local festivals in Michigan on Facebook and essentially said, I'm going to be at Upheaval Festival and I'm going to be there alone. And this is the first time I've ever gone to anything like this alone. So if you see me, stop me. I'll smoke a joint with you, get a picture with you, blah, 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 blah. It actually led to 27 people that I didn't know looking for me and finding me.
There you go.
And I was like, that is crazy. I'm just this nobody from northern Michigan. And just with the internet, I was able to get all of these people that I didn't know to look for me. So I was like, I want to do something with that. Right. And I decided I'd gotten a bracelet given to me at that Upheaval Festival, one of these bead bracelets. And I decided, I think that's what I want to do. I've always been an artist. I've always loved to create things. So I decided to start making these bracelets. And the first show that I made them for was Bring Me the Horizon and Fall Out Boy.
Nice.
And I was so nervous. Like, walking up to people, even to my friends that I knew were there, I was so nervous to give people my bracelets, but they were so well received. And I literally got rid of every single one that I had brought with me. And I was like, I think this is something.
Right.
So I decided to just keep doing it and market myself on Facebook. And then I started to look for local shows and smaller shows. And I started to make bracelets for the bands that were playing. And that I couldn't imagine how well received that was going to be. And that led me to making a lot of connections in the music industry in Michigan and took me places that I would have never even imagined that I could go. Being media passed into shows and things like that. This was all like brand new to somebody who just went to concerts just for the fun of it. So it started off as something to help me heal from my mom dying and from my divorce. And it essentially became my internet persona. And I've been doing it now since July of 2023, so almost 3 years. And it's been amazing. I can't even describe all of what I've experienced just because I decided to become Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl. And a fun fact is I absolutely hate the name that I gave myself. um, I'm so bad at coming up with things like that that it just like it happened and I named myself that and it stuck. And to this day, I absolutely hate Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl, but everybody else loves it. So I
Yeah.
just kind of ran with it.
What would you change it to if you had the choice?
I honestly don't know
Yeah.
because I mean, that at this point now has become me.
It doesn't matter. You are Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl now.
Yes, I am Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl. I will be crowd surfing at a show and I will hear people screaming, "It's the Bead Girl," as I'm going over top of them. So the name is definitely stuck. I couldn't change it now if I tried.
Do the bands that you're going to see know that you're coming, or is it all just like a straight up surprise to them?
I always put ahead of time where I'm going to be so that like my fan base can find me.
Fair.
That has led to some of the local bands. They always know I'm coming because a lot of times I'll just message them ahead of time and be like, "I'm coming to your event. I want to get you guys bracelets. I just want to confirm how many members of your band there are." So the
That's nice.
local shows always know I'm coming. But I've had some of the bigger bands. One of my greatest moments was We Came as Romans. Now they are a Detroit-based band. I saw them in Grand Rapids. It was 2024. And I had posted on Facebook prior that I was going to be. It was they were opening for In This Moment. So I had posted and I always tag the bands so that if the band sees it. Well, Andy, their vocalist, came out to meet people at the merch table afterwards. And I gave him one of my bracelets and he said, "You're the Bead Girl. I saw your post on Facebook." And I fangirled quite a bit on that
Very
one.
cool.
I was very excited. But yeah, a lot of times the bands do know I'm coming.
Very cool. Very cool. And you have a podcast, or you're a co-host of a podcast,
Co-host.
correct?
Yes, I'm a co-host of a podcast run by my friend Allie. She is based out of Philadelphia. The podcast is called A Pretty Little Podcast. We talk to musicians. Also, we've talked to Steve Maple, the guy who runs Michigan Metal Fest.
Very cool.
So we've talked to festival promoters and other promoters. Yeah, it's a good time. I enjoy it.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm glad that there are more than just me doing this whole thing. And people tend to get, we were talking about this before the show started, is like people tend to think that there's like animosity between us or something like that. It's like we're all good here.
It's all love and support. We're all trying to do the same thing, and that is help these up and coming bands
Yeah.
get exposure because the only way you're going to make it anywhere is by getting exposure.
Yeah.
So we're all in it for the same reason.
And we're all kind of like talking to like kind of different bands as well, different genres, or maybe even different like, you know, people or whatever like that. So like it never really like connects all that much. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And if a band does two different podcasts, that's great for them because that is getting their name out there. So if you were to have a band on your podcast that we had on ours, I would think that was great.
I've done that. Is like I recommend other podcasts for them to go to that have bigger followings than I do. Mm-hmm. Just because I know it would be good for them and I think they're worth it type deal, you know?
Yes, exactly. Essentially, it all boils down to being about the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How is the music scene in your area?
Michigan has the most fantastic metal scene I've seen anywhere. I spent a lot of time on the East Coast. I've dealt with a lot of bands out of Pennsylvania, things like that. And Michigan has one of the best scenes I've ever seen. There are
Very cool.
so many very talented, especially metal bands, but a lot of good rock bands here too that just blow your mind.
Right.
And yeah, I moved to Detroit about a year ago,
Mhm.
and I love it here. The Detroit metal scene, and a lot of them open for more well-known headliners when they come through, and they're looking for local bands. So a lot of my friends' bands have opened up for even bigger bands, and we just have such a good scene here.
Since you are, in the crowds a lot, you're at shows a lot. From your perspective, what makes a band stand out to you? What makes them? What makes you want to go to their shows or follow them on Facebook?
I like a good front man.
Very good.
Um, I am a huge Corey Taylor fan. His energy on stage with Slipknot and even Stone Sour and even his solo project is just unlike anybody else's. Jacoby Shaddix is another great example of a high energy frontman. Johnny from Nothing More. These are all people that draw me in. I think that a frontman can make or break a live performance.
Fair.
I'm a huge Tool fan. Love Tool. I've listened to them for years. However, once you've seen one of their live shows, you've seen them all. Because Maynard, in my opinion, is not a dynamic frontman. That's kind of what he's known for. I mean, I saw them once and he was hiding behind like a projector screen and all you could see was a silhouette of him the entire night. So that to me is a turnoff. I like when the vocalist engages the crowd, and I love it when they call for the circle pits and everything
Yeah.
like that, and they get everybody fired up. I love it when they call for crowd surfers, as I am pretty much a professional crowd surfer. So I like it when they get the energy level going. That's what I look for.
Now, I agree with that, and on the local side of that, like there was a show, not last year, but the year before, so it was like 2023, 2024 ish, somewhere around there, that I went to up in Newark, and it was an Awake at Last show, and there was this band I had never heard of called Dead Eyes, and they played right before Awake at Last, and all the rest of the bands leading up to it were like, yeah, that's cool, but when Dead Eyes got on stage, it was like, dang, dude, like these guys are good. Like the
Yep.
vocalist was very, very interactive with the crowd. Like he was dancing on stage and stuff, and like all kinds of crazy stuff. And then
I just saw them open for the Brownings, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
and they're about to go on tour with All That Remains.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, like, that's just like, you start seeing that little stuff. It's like a local band moving into like the bigger venues and the bigger stages. Like, dude, this is really awesome. Like, and I
Yeah.
got to see them early because, at the time they were kind of like a local band, you know?
Yep.
And just got really lucky with going out and hanging out with Awake at Last, and then they went on tour with Awake at Last, and then from there I've just seen them kind of really grow, and I think that that's really cool to see in our local scene.
I agree 100%. And I will tell you my thoughts on part of their growth is Sirius XM radio has a station called Octane.
Yeah.
And it is primarily like hard rock and like metalcore. and they started spinning Dead Eyes here and there. And once Octane picks you up, I've seen it with a lot of bands.
Oh,
once
yeah.
Octane starts spinning you, boom, there you go. Sleep Theory was another one that was blown up by Octane.
Yep.
Even Bad Omens got really, really big with Octane. So I've heard Dead Eyes on Octane quite a few times, actually. And I can guarantee that that's part of what got them boosted up. So I love seeing smaller bands like that.
Well, then their TikTok game is like on point.
TikTok is another just has made careers of bands that you wouldn't expect to see that from. Bad Omens is another one that blew up on TikTok. And the only thing I can say about bands like that blow up on TikTok is when you go to their live shows, you're at a metal show. We all know what happens at metal shows, mosh pits and crowd surfing. And when you get in with those TikTok crowds that discovered, the softer side of Bad Omens through TikTok, and then they start playing Artificial Suicide or Dethrone, and all of these people are like, what is going on? Why are these people crashing into each other? Why are people going over my head? So it brings in a new audience that isn't necessarily been exposed to an actual metal show before. And that creates issues all in itself.
It can go good or really bad really quick.
Yep. I mean, Sleep Token is another one that happened to at Louder Than Life last year. People were chanting to drop crowd surfers during Sleep Token set. And people were literally getting dropped. And I understand, but you are at a metal festival, so it doesn't matter what band is on stage. People are going to mosh and people are going to crowd surf. And if you don't like it, you've got to move yourself out of the area where that's happening. You can't just deliberately try to hurt people because you don't like what's going on.
We got to do the monthly moment stuff. Do you want to do it with me?
Absolutely.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. Let's move over the screen here. On this screen, we have a wheel of local and independent and underground bands. We're going to spin said wheel, and then that'll be the band that I'll cut it in later that we give a shout out to for this month on the monthly moment. So let's go ahead and pull that up and make sure it's spinning on the screen. It is. All right, let's go ahead and click the button. All right. Black Winter. If you're into dark, aggressive, heavy music, you're going to want to check these guys out. Their EP, Abandon All Hope, is out now and streaming across all platforms. Black Winter brings that raw underground energy with crushing riffs, heavy vocals, and sounds that lean into the darker side of the metal scene. So if you're looking for something heavy to add to your playlist, go give Black Winter a listen and support the underground scene. I'll make sure to leave the link in the description for the band, and like, share, comment, subscribe. Comment your band in the comment section of this video, and you might be the next monthly moment. Okay, back to the episode. I have to ask about the crowd surfing because it absolutely terrifies me.
I have crowd surfed hundreds of times.
I don't think I could do it.
The first time I did it was at Upheaval Festival in July of 2023 when this whole journey first began. I'd wanted to do it for years and wasn't allowed to in the marriage that I was in. And that was my first taste of freedom. And I was like, I want to check this off my bucket list. Honestly, only thought it was something that I would do once.
Right.
Crowd surfed during Falling in Reverse, got surfed right into the mosh pit, got dropped. Fortunately, I fell onto my feet right in the middle of the pit. So it was kind of a really terrifying experience all the way around.
And you continued?
Did I what?
You continued?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
Well, not at that point. I got out of there and I honestly didn't do it again for, I want to say 7 months.
Mm,
I ended up blowing my knee out in a mosh pit at an Attila show a couple of months after my first crowd surf. So I was done. I couldn't do anything at that point.
right.
So come February of the following year, 2024, I went and saw, I believe it was Static X and Seven Dust when they were on tour together, like the first time they were on tour together. And my knee had just started getting better. I'd just gotten the knee brace off, and I was like, I'm going to try it again. And I surfed probably 3 times at that show. And from there, it just became something that I really enjoyed doing. There is something about being up on top of that whole crowd, and especially when you're at like a festival or an arena show and there are just thousands of people and you can just see everything. And being short like me, sometimes that's the best view I have of the stage
Oh, fair.
is when I'm actually up. And I'll tell you, that is sometimes why I surf, is because I love this song and I actually want to see what's going on, because I'm only 5'3", so there's always somebody 20 feet taller than me standing in front of me. But then I did it so frequently that it became something that people wanted to see me do.
Right.
So, I mean, literally, if I get asked at a show, people will find me, you want to go up? Let's put you up. And of course, I kind of have to at that point, because I have built this whole persona of being the crowd surfing queen. So, probably the place that I surfed the most was Sonic Temple of 2024. I surfed Lost Town at 77 times the entire weekend. I probably hit 100 while I was there. I during Throne had like a 20-minute set, and I probably surfed 10 to 12 times during that set. I just kept going back and having people put me up. And I'm very lightweight, so I'm the ideal crowd surfer. I mean, I'm barely 100 pounds soaking wet, so it's not much to get me up. I've been dropped. I had an incident at a Devil Wears Prada show that I got dropped so bad that I said, I don't think I'm ever going to do this again. I was in so much pain. I thought I was going to have to go to the emergency room. Fortunately, I was fine. From that point on, I decided that it was less about quantity and more about quality.
Got
And
you.
I am very calculated about where I surf, when I go up. If the band calls for crowd surfers, you will not see me as one of the first people up, because that's when people are dropped. I will go towards more of the end of it. I'm always watching the surfers and seeing how well their surf goes before I decide my trajectory and which path
Fair.
I'm going to take. And since I've started doing more calculated and watching and everything like that, I haven't been dropped at all. So,
Are you afraid of being like, I mean, look, you're a lady, you know. Are you afraid of being like grabbed in the wrong way, getting pickpocketed while you're going through?
well, pickpocketed, no,
Okay.
because I don't carry anything in my pockets.
Okay.
I have it's called a clutch loop, and it's essentially a lanyard that I clip my phone, and it clips to my belt loop
Got
so
you.
that my phone can't get stolen. I wear a fanny pack that locks. So I'm not worried about people stealing anything from me. And I will be honest that I have not had any bad experiences with anybody from what I thought would be intentionally groping me.
Right.
Obviously, you get hands on your butt. Like,
Well,
it's
yeah, I mean,
obviously,
it's a
if those
part of it.
hands weren't there, I would fall. So I'm okay with that. Actually, I've been groped in a crowd before, and it wasn't while I was crowd surfing.
Fair.
So it's more like I tend to get in this zone that I don't really feel the people's hands moving me. It's just kind of like this zen that I get into, and all I can hear is the music and see what I see and just my experience. So if somebody has intentionally groped me, I didn't know.
Fair. Hey, that's fair. It's something that you have to ask though, because I mean, like,
I've heard
sometimes you
stories.
see the stories,
Yep, I've heard stories women say, and honestly, it may have happened to me, but it's not something that I noticed.
Fair enough. See, I'm so afraid to do it, man. Like, I've seen so many of those fail videos and heard so many of the bad stories. I'm getting old. I don't want to break a hip. Yeah.
I am 46 years old. So, yeah, I totally understand. I know my days doing this are numbered. I know my days in the mosh pit are numbered. But honestly, this is probably going to sound kind of funny, but I work out on a daily basis. I am training for festival season.
That's not funny. I mean,
train
that's smart.
for the mosh pits, because I have an autoimmune disorder, so I do deal with a lot of pain. And this helps me get strong enough that I don't get knocked down in the pit, and that I can control myself from flailing all over like a wild crowd surf. You can tell somebody who has done it several times versus somebody who is brand new. You can tell. I mean, you're supposed to, they say it like Jesus, you're supposed to have your arms out and your legs crossed, and they just pass you. And you can tell when somebody is not used to that, or when somebody doesn't have the core strength to stay in that position. And that's why I've toned my core and stuff so that I can stay in that position, and it causes less problems and causes me to be dropped less.
I think that's a smart thing to do. If you're going to be doing that, you might as well take the exercise and get the training in before you go.
Yeah.
So that you know.
It's made a world of difference in this last.
Very good.
I started doing the working out after a Fit for a King show back in November, that I moshed so hard and I crowd surfed so much that the next day I could barely move. I was in so much pain, and I was like, I need to do something differently, because if I don't figure something out to stop this pain from happening and get myself in better shape, I'm not going to be able to do the stuff I love anymore. So I went into full mode I do yoga, I do Pilates, I lift weights. I'm starting, now that the weather is getting warmer, I'm starting to walk a lot more. Just anything I can to tone my body so that I can last longer in the mosh pit. As weird as that might sound, but that is my favorite thing to do, is to be in the pit and crowd surf. I love it. And I want to be able to do it as long as possible.
I think the only way I'm ever going to be crowd surfing is if, like, I'm having a medical emergency and, like,
have to surf you out.
Permission granted, my life alert's going off, get me to an ambulance. I'm good with that. But
I had to surf out of some wild pits, some pit that I couldn't handle the crowd surge because I'm so small. And when that happens, I'm like, put me up. I need to get out of here. I need to get to the back. And when you're at a festival like Louder Than Life or Sonic Temple, sometimes there's no way to get to the back except for up and out. So I've surfed out of one of the most violent pits I ever surfed out of was, strangely enough, Sum 41 at Louder Than Life a couple of years ago. Their pop punk music got people just going. And I looked at my friend and I was like, I gotta go. I can't handle this. And I'm like, I told the guy in front of me, put me up, and I surfed right out of there.
That's crazy. The one, let's see. It was A Day to Remember. Man, I can't even remember the year. It was like right before I got married. I got tickets to go see A Day to Remember. And Jeremy got in a ball and started crowd surfing in the ball. I just thought that was kind of a hilarious thing that happened. I was like, dude, like I'm holding Jeremy up.
That is, I love it when the vocalists get out there. I watch a guy from Set It Off, the band. I watched him surf on a literal mattress in Detroit a couple of years ago, and he surfed from one end of that crowd back to the
Yeah.
stage on this mattress, and it was so great.
It was, yeah. I mean, we had a lot of good times, a lot of fun times. But now I'm old and sit here and do podcasts.
Yes, yes. I'm trying to me staying in the mosh pit and crowd surfing is my fountain of youth. So that's what's keeping me young. So I will continue to do it as long as I can.
There you go. I want to ask you the best reasons why you should support local and why it's so important.
Every major band you see on stage, every Slipknot, every Papa Roach, everybody like that started off in a garage somewhere and needed a break to get them into the industry.
Yep.
Those are the grandfathers of, modern metal.
Yep.
And they're aging out. Corey Taylor put a time limit on himself. He said he had 5 years left of touring with Slipknot, and that was it. So we need these younger bands that are up and coming that have quite a bit of talent. We need to get them up to be the next Slipknot, the next Papa Roach, the next Mudvayne, whatever it is. And the only way to do that is to support local music.
That's a great answer.
You will always see me. I go to as many local shows as I do major tours. I love my local bands.
I tend to go to more local band shows than I do big name bands anymore.
They're cheaper. Nine
Yep.
times out of 10, you're not buying the tickets through Ticketmaster or Live Nation and their stupid monopoly.
Very true. Which just got worse, I heard.
Yeah, you're dealing with more people that want to be there, not necessarily got drugged there by their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and is just sitting around getting drunk and belligerent. You're dealing with more people that are there because they want to be there.
Right. That's exactly right. That is a great way to put it. So
I love local music. I am always going to support local music. One of these days, one of these bands that I've been supporting is going to be another Slipknot. And then I'm going to be like, I've been following these guys since day one.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel about Dutchman. When it's a band that we've had on the podcast a couple of times. They give me a lot of opportunities, so I do try to shout them out as much as I possibly can. When I met them, they were doing big things, but they weren't there yet. Throughout the last 2 years that I've known them and have been talking with them and watching them grow, it's night and day difference. They have learned how to do it. They're on the news all the time. They're getting plays on regular TV all the time, and they're not even a metal band. They're more 70s rock,
Right.
Americana type deal. But they found their own way. They found their niche. They found their people. Awake at Last is another example of that for me. Is growing up, Vince. I don't know how many people know this or not, and Vince is going to be fine with me talking about it anyway. Me, Vince, Justice, and Eric Blackway, we've all been playing shows together in different bands since we were kids, since we were teenagers. Eric and Vince were in a band together, and Justice and I were in a different band together, and we kind of grew up learning all this stuff together. How, we went to the same shows, we played for the same shows. They opened for us, we opened for them. And then, a little bit later in life, me and Vince were in a band together for a little while. It was called Scar the City. It lasted maybe 6 months. I mean, look, it was local bands. I had just had a kid. I was trying to figure things out, and I had to walk away. But I mean, we went to school together. We knew each other. And then Awake at Last started happening. I had taken a step back from everything just so I could raise a family. It was the most important thing to me. So I decided, let's go ahead and take that time to be dad. But in that time, I was never in Awake at Last. But in the time that I was doing all that, they were taking Awake at Last and building and building. And dude, like now, like they're the hottest band in Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now like I still talk to them. Eric is our producer for Recall the Moment for the majority of the recordings that we do, and Vince and I are always talking together about like D&D and stuff like that. Like we have fun, we are friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you just, it feels so good to see my friends, people that I grew up with, growing and doing the damn thing. You know?
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. I have a couple of local bands that I found when I first started doing all of this that one of them is called Accuser of the Brethren, and they're based out of Lansing, Michigan. They're a deathcore beatdown band. I absolutely love them. I've been in 2 of their music videos.
Very
They
cool.
are recently starting to really take off and get on bigger bills and things like that. And I have another group of friends that are in a band called Let It Rot, and they're also out of Lansing, Michigan, and they're also very deathcore. They're getting ready to go to Japan on tour.
All right.
They just opened for Born of Osiris back in November. So I mean, they're playing bigger and bigger shows, and it's so awesome to see that.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. I did have one more question before we start cutting it off, if you're cool with one
Okay,
more.
absolutely.
What is something that bands do, whether it be social media or in concert, that they think is cool, but in actuality is kind of annoying or not good?
I'm gonna go to the non-dynamic frontman, and we'll
Fair enough.
go with the Maynard from Tool. We'll go with that again. He thinks that his gimmick is good, and the being in the background as the front man is good, and he thinks that it works, but a lot of the fans think it's super boring. So yeah, there's a lot of front men that think that like stepping back and not being that dynamic person leading the band is a good idea, and I don't. I think if you're the vocalist, you're the face, you're the one that people know. I hate to say it that way, but I know most people can name a whole lot more vocalists by name than they can guitar players, bassists, or drummers.
Very true.
And so you're the face, and you need to act accordingly. So I think that that's one of the things that I just don't like when a band does.
Very, yeah, I agree with that, and that goes back into like I Know a Day to Remember is one of my favorite bands. I don't know them personally, but like I listen to their music, and
Mhm.
the only one I can actually name is Jeremy McKinnon.
Jeremy,
So,
exactly,
so
exactly. So I mean, even going back to '70s bands and stuff, a lot of people you can name the vocalist, but you
right.
can't name anybody else in the band. And a lot of times when a band changes their vocalist, that is a problem.
It changes the
Some
whole
bands,
dynamic. Yeah,
yeah, some
absolutely.
bands like Van Halen obviously went on to have great success with both of their lead singers, but some bands it just puts them into being obsolete because people don't like the sound of the new singer or vocalists. I think the vocals make the band a lot of the time, make the sound. We'll say I Prevail, for example.
Yeah.
They just let Brian, their
Yep.
clean vocalist, go. And I am a huge I Prevail fan. I have a tattoo on my arm of I Prevail. I love them so much. But when they cut Brian out, I just don't like their new sound. It took away some of their uniqueness. And I think that a clean vocalist, especially with the metalcore band, a clean vocalist really makes the sound. So I can think of other bands like the Amity Affliction that just let their lead vocalist go. And they just, as much as I still love them and I will always support these bands because they are some of my favorites, they just don't sound the same to me anymore. And it affects when they play these songs live, and it throws off the whole vibe.
You're right.
So your vocalist is very important to the band.
You're right. Atreyu, it wasn't like it was last year or the year before that their screamer had walked
Yeah.
away.
Yep.
And like they re-recorded one of their albums, and I can't get into it.
No.
Yeah.
Because it just sounds
It's
completely different.
Yeah,
And that's the same with I Prevail. Now they have Eric, their unclean vocalist, is doing the clean vocals as well. And when they play those older songs live, it just doesn't hit the same way that it used to.
No, and it was almost even worse with the Atreyu stuff because they re-recorded really good songs that I did like.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I get it. You know, you want to get some new, fresh eyes on the old stuff, or maybe just get something out with the new vocalist. But
just focus on creating new music and not trying to recreate old music. And if you do replace the vocalist, maybe you should cut some of those older songs off your set list and start focusing more on your newer stuff that you've got a new vocalist for. Because it just sometimes you've got a new singer singing the old vocalist stuff, and you've got a psychotic fan base that's like, no, you don't sound right. So yeah, the vocalist is very important.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. And where can people find you for the future?
You can find me on Facebook, Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl, and there's also my personal page, Jamie Reed, because I share content from both pages regularly. So you follow me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Jamie the Traveling Bead Girl. I'm getting better with posting on Instagram. That's not my favorite platform, but I'm starting to utilize it more. And I'm also starting to utilize TikTok a little bit more. And you can follow me, the Traveling Bead Girl, because they wouldn't let me put the Jamie on there. It was too long. So it's just the Traveling Bead Girl on TikTok.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Jamie. All right. And as for the Recall the Podcast stuff, we post a brand new episode of this podcast once a month, usually at the end of the month. And we've been doing highlight reels once a week, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. So make sure to check all that out, and Jamie as well. Peace and love, y'all.